I, 40, female, am feeling conflicted about a recent decision I made regarding my family and would like to know everyone's opinion. To start with, my life turned upside down 8 years ago when my husband, Robert, suddenly announced that he was leaving me and the kids. He had met a hot chick online and fallen in love with her. His decision came out of nowhere and left me devastated. Robert had been acting distant and strange for weeks leading up to the revelation, but I had brushed it off as work-related stress. We had been married for over a decade and had stuck by each other through thick and thin. I had known him for half my life, and we had built a family together. The possibility of infidelity had never crossed my mind. One evening, Robert finally confessed that he had met someone. Those words broke my heart. He blurted out that the woman's name was Isabella and she was the hottest woman he had ever seen. He had been talking to her for the past 3 months and they had formed a connection that made him realize he was unhappy in our marriage. Every word he spoke cut through me like a knife, and I felt a mixture of anger and despair swirling in my stomach. He continued to reassure me that he still loved us, but he couldn't deny his feelings for Isabella. He insisted that he needed to meet her in person to see if it was going to go somewhere. I was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions, unable to make sense of what was happening, and it felt like the walls of our home were closing in on me. My voice quivered as I asked him if he was leaving us and the children for this woman. He nodded slowly, saying that although he didn't expect me to understand, he needed to do this for himself. He had given it a lot of thought and he was going to go to meet her and start a new life. He told me that he was ready to support us financially as much as he could, but he needed to follow his heart and meet the love of his life. The world came crashing down around me. I just couldn't believe that my husband was leaving me and our kids for someone he had never met in person. My first instinct was to scream, to plead, to do anything to make him stay, but I looked at his face and I knew that he had already made his choice, and there was no turning back. Robert moved out the following week, leaving me to explain to our children that their father wouldn't be coming back. Emily, at 9 years old, had 1,000 questions, but I had no answers. Nathan, who was only 4 years old then, couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of the situation and clung to me as if he knew that something was terribly wrong. I felt numb and shattered during this time, and my children were the only thing that kept me from drowning in my sorrow. When I first told my family about Robert, they had the same reaction as me. They just couldn't understand why on earth my husband of so many years would do something like this. My parents wanted me to pursue this legally, but at that point in my life, I didn't have a lot to go on, and I still believed my husband would come back to us. Robert's parents looked utterly helpless and broken when they found out their son had left us. They called him multiple times, pleading with him to return to us, but he told them the same story. Eventually, days turned into weeks and weeks into months. I was left to pick up the pieces, both for my sake and for the kids. Our family and friends rallied around us, offering support and a shoulder to lean on. I focused on finding a job so I could provide a stable environment for Emily and Nathan, but the pain of my husband's betrayal lingered. During this time, Robert's parents helped me a lot by offering help financially and babysitting the children if I ever needed a break. 8 years have since passed, and Robert's presence in our lives has dwindled to nothing more than a distant memory. He used to send us money periodically, but other than that, he never contacted me or the children. I have pretty much become a single mother over the years, working tirelessly to provide for my children and give them the love and attention they deserve. Although Emily occasionally remembered her father, she eventually stopped trying to contact him and learned not to bring him up. In contrast, Nathan's recollection was far hazier, so he never even mentioned him. They both have grown up to become remarkable individuals despite the pain of losing their father. Recently, Robert's father passed away unexpectedly and we all attended his funeral. Later, his family lawyer informed us that he wanted to talk to me regarding his will. The lawyer explained that Robert's father had left some money for his grandchildren. While it wasn't a substantial amount, it could help cover my kids' college expenses. I sat down with my children and shared the news that they wouldn't need to fret over college expenses anymore. Their faces lit up with joy, and witnessing their happiness was truly heartwarming. It felt like a weight had been lifted knowing that we had one less concern on our plate. After a long period of uncertainty, it finally felt like everything was coming together in our lives. Last week, I received a call from an unknown number. To my surprise, it was Robert on the other end of the line. There was a rush of conflicting emotions, and I was speechless to hear his voice after 8 years. He hesitated before telling me that he wanted to meet me urgently. I was confused, so I asked him to clarify. He admitted that he wanted to discuss an offer with me and kept pleading with me that he had to see me. I couldn't understand why he was calling me now after so many years when he didn't bother contacting me before. His repeated pleas were difficult to ignore, so I took a moment to gather my thoughts and finally agreed to meet with him alone, albeit cautiously. The rendezvous was set and we decided to meet at a cafe near my office. As I hung up the call, a whirlwind of questions and uncertainties filled my mind, leaving me anxious about meeting him after 6 years. I decided not to tell my kids anything until after I met him to see what was the offer he kept talking about. The days leading up to our scheduled meeting were a roller coaster of emotions. I couldn't help but replay the past in my mind, recalling the pain of Robert's sudden departure, the struggles of raising our children alone, and the years of trying to come to terms with his abandonment. On the day of our meeting, I arrived early, nervously sipping my coffee as I waited for Robert. It wasn't long before he walked in, approaching me with a mix of hesitation and determination. I noticed he looked older, worn, and somehow different from the man I had married. Our initial exchange was filled with awkward silences and tentative words. We avoided the elephant in the room, focusing instead on polite greetings and catching up on the years that had passed. It was as if we were two strangers trying to navigate the remnants of a past life. Eventually, Robert gathered his courage and began to explain the reason for his sudden reappearance in our lives. He spoke about how Isabella didn't turn out to be the woman he thought she was. It turns out she was actually a single mother herself, but had never revealed the truth to him until he had left us and was standing in front of her doorstep. Their relationship faced numerous challenges, mainly stemming from her gambling addiction, which led her to squander all of his money. They argued frequently, but Robert had chosen to stand by her, hesitant to give up on someone else again. However, when his father passed away recently, he realized how short life was to remain in an unhappy situation every day. He spoke about how much he missed everyone back here and was disappointed with the choices he had made 8 years ago. Robert continued saying he had thought several times over the years of coming back to us, but didn't have the strength to face us. He then revealed that his father had bequeathed him their lake house, which was this huge property where we used to go for vacations back before Robert left us. He told me he wanted to sell the house, which would allow him to be set for the rest of his life. I nodded quietly, listening to him. Robert then dropped a bombshell. He proposed that he wanted to come back to us and give our children a luxurious life. He assured me that I would never have to work again in my life if I accepted him back into our lives. I stared at him in disbelief as he assured me we could live the rest of our lives without worrying about money. Basically, Robert wanted us to reconcile and give our family a second chance, using the inheritance to build a better life together. I weighed Robert's words carefully, understanding the potential benefits that the inheritance could bring to our family. However, it was impossible to forget all the years he had been absent, leaving me to fend for our children. As much as the idea of financial security appealed to me, I couldn't ignore the pain and anger that had built up over the years of his abandonment. So I firmly told him that while I appreciated the offer, I just couldn't forget the last 8 years. I told him that I had been raising the kids alone while juggling work, and while we may not have everything now, we did have a stable life. I told him that I couldn't risk putting myself and my children through the pain again. I wanted to protect them, and I wasn't sure if I could ever trust him not to leave us again. Robert kept pleading with me to reconsider, his eyes filled with desperation, but I knew that if I allowed him back into our lives, I would be taking a huge gamble on our family's stability. My heart ached a bit at the thought of rejecting his offer, especially considering the financial relief it could bring. But I couldn't overlook the emotional scars he had left behind. Since my meeting with Robert, my parents have been asking me to reconsider my decision to reject his offer. They kept telling me that after what he has put us through, the least he could do now was provide me and our children with a better life, free from financial worries and limitations. My parents kept arguing that people can change and perhaps Robert has realized his mistakes and truly wants to rebuild our family. They think I am being selfish and want me to put my children's comfort above my heartbreak. I've been spending many sleepless nights wrestling with my choice. I haven't been able to bring myself to tell my children about Robert's return. I worry about how they will react to the news and how they will process the idea of their father re-entering their lives after 8 years of absence. I've been questioning my own judgment, torn between the potential benefits of accepting Robert's offer and the memories of our painful past. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for rejecting Robert's offer and possibly keeping my children and us from a better life? Update 1. In just a few days, I have received thousands of comments and messages from people. I am glad that a majority of you don't think I'm the a-hole. I listened to everyone's advice and decided it was time to have an open conversation with my children about Robert. The last thing I wanted was for him to reappear in their lives, taking them by surprise suddenly. Today, I sat Emily and Nathan down after dinner so I could gently broach the subject with them. I began to tell them about their father's unexpected reappearance and his offer to come back to our lives. Their faces reflected a mix of curiosity and confusion as they tried to understand what I was saying. When I told them that he had inherited the lake house and wanted to sell it to help us financially, their reactions varied. Emily, now 17 years old, exhibited a range of emotions from anger to shock. She was as confused as me and couldn't understand why Robert wanted to return to us after so many years. Although she remembered her father and sometimes missed him, she also remembered the pain she had felt in his absence. She said that she had missed having a father figure in her life initially, but had eventually learned to live without him and did not want him anymore. Nathan, who's now 12 years old, told us that he didn't remember Robert at all, so he didn't care much that I had rejected the offer. He struggled to grasp the full implications of this situation. I told them frankly that whatever they decided would happen, as I respected their opinions and emotions. Emily expressed that she had absolutely no desire to meet him, and Nathan agreed, saying that he was content with how things were. I realized that although the thought of potentially mending our family was enticing, the scars from the past ran deep, and my children's well-being was paramount in my mind. I knew I had made the right choice to walk away from Robert that day in the cafe. Following this, I plan on talking to my parents about the next course of action. Contrary to popular opinion, I never planned on staying married to Robert, but he left before we could go through with the divorce. I did not have the resources to go against him then, but I have since realized that there is no point in staying married to this man anymore. Update 2. Robert's relentless calls had become increasingly desperate over the past few weeks, and no matter how much I explained to him that I did not want him back, he kept calling. As a non-confrontational person, I felt cornered and emotionally drained by his constant attempts to reach me. I was worried that he might suddenly turn up at my workplace or visit the kids at school. Hence, I decided it was time to reach out to his mother. She was aware of his return and seemed like the only person who could help me understand his motivations and deal with his relentless pursuit. I met her to inform her of my decision to end things with him legally and to express my annoyance with his constant calls. It was during this conversation that his mother revealed the real reason behind his persistence. She explained that Robert's father had added a cleverly designed clause when bequeathing him the lake house. He could become the owner of the house if, and only if, he returned to our family. To solidify his claim over the house, I had to sign the papers as well. This revelation left me shocked and dismayed. I finally understood why he had been pursuing me for several weeks. The primary reason he was contacting me was not out of a genuine desire to reconcile or make amends with me, but rather to secure ownership of the house. The whole situation felt like a cruel manipulation of emotions, and I needed to consider my next steps carefully. After discovering Robert's true intentions, I realized it was time to act. I didn't want to stay in a relationship anymore, driven by manipulation and secrets. I have started looking for a lawyer as I write this who can help me prepare for my divorce proceedings immediately. I have also talked with my parents who regret telling me to reconsider his offer. They understand now that he hasn't changed over the years and are supportive of my decision to move forward with the divorce. They regret telling me to ever listen to him and now know that it is the right thing to walk away from him. I have blocked Robert for now, so he can't disturb me anymore. I plan to see him directly when I serve him with divorce papers. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I can finally give a happy update. As I had mentioned, I was going to serve Robert with the divorce papers, so I reached out to him in the pretext of meeting him. He immediately agreed. Emily and Nathan expressed a desire to meet their father one last time. They had many questions, and I felt it was essential for them to have some closure, despite the pain of the past. We arranged for a meeting in a neutral place, a local park, where we had spent many happy family moments before Robert's departure. Emily's eyes were filled with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as she looked at her father, while Nathan clung to my side awkwardly. I started by telling him that I knew by now his real motive behind contacting us after so long. Robert protested that it wasn't just a clause in his father's will that prompted him, but he genuinely wanted us to give him a second chance. I shook my head in disbelief, knowing that I could not trust another word out of this man's mouth. I told him that we were finished, and that the least he could do was give our children some closure by answering their questions. He nodded solemnly. Emily started by asking him if leaving us for another woman was worth it. Robert shamefully looked down as he answered that he was lost and had made a terrible mistake. Nathan, with a more straightforward approach, asked him if finding his happiness was more important than leaving his children with his wife. Robert took a deep breath before responding that he thought he wasn't thinking straight at the time, and admitted that he was wrong in leaving us. My children, perceptive and strong, weren't satisfied with just those answers. Robert tried to justify his affair, saying that it was his midlife crisis. As the conversation continued, Robert shared painful details of his life with Isabella, the struggles they faced, and the realization that he had been chasing an illusion. Emily and Nathan listened attentively, although I doubt they believed him. They asked him why he had never kept in touch and if he really regretted leaving us. I could feel the pain in my children's voices. Robert admitted that he had been overwhelmed by his own guilt and didn't know how to face the consequences of his actions. He reiterated that he wanted us to be whole again and that he could provide us with a luxurious life now. As I looked into my children's eyes, I knew that the decision was clear. They did not believe him, just like me, and would not allow Robert to waltz back into our lives, offering money as a quick fix for the damage he had caused. It was a matter of principle. of standing up for the strength and resilience my children and I had shown over the past 8 years in his absence. Determined, I told him that we had moved on from him and did not need him or his money anymore. I served him the divorce papers as he looked at it with a mixture of remorse and disappointment. He pleaded with me that he genuinely wanted to make up for those years, but I was resolute in my decision. He then offered to split the lake house sale proceeding with me, telling me that in this way we could both benefit from it. Emily spoke up that we didn't need his charity money, and Nathan nodded in agreement, adding that we had what we needed to be happy. At this point, I guess Robert finally realized what a huge blunder he had made and started to cry. He kept apologizing to the kids, saying he had made a terrible mistake by leaving us, and he understood that we could never forgive him. That day, as I walked away from the park, hand in hand with Emily and Nathan, I finally felt free. It had never occurred to me the burden I had carried quietly for the sake of my children. It felt good watching my children stand up for me and have my back. Our divorce will proceed as I have decided. I know that it's going to take a while before I am freed of him legally, but in the meantime, I plan on taking some time off so I can spend some time with my children. I plan on taking them to Disneyland, a trip we've been looking forward to for a long time. I want to create beautiful memories with my children, filled with laughter and joy, to help offset the painful memories of the past. I know as long as we have each other, we can face whatever the future holds with strength and resilience. Despite the challenges and emotional turmoil we have faced, my children and I are on a path towards healing and creating a new, stable and honest life. This chapter is far from over, but we are going to be writing our own story from now on, and I am determined to ensure it's one filled with love, trust, and growth. Update 4. Since my last update, I have some exciting news to share. I was promoted at work, and it feels like a huge accomplishment. It took me a long time to reach this position, but I am finally earning a comfortable income that allows me to provide even more for my family. The promotion not only brings financial security, but also the satisfaction of knowing that my hard work and dedication have paid off in the end. Things are going well with the divorce proceedings. I've hired an excellent lawyer who, after finding out the history between my husband and me, is confident that it will be a smooth divorce. Although it may not be a simple process, it is necessary for our closure and a fresh start. My family and friends have stood by my side throughout this time, providing support. Now that I'm earning more than enough, I plan on sending my children to therapy. I understand that my children might have abandonment issues, so that they can better process their emotions and work through any lingering issues. I have been researching therapists with expertise in dealing with such issues and have found a compassionate and experienced therapist who specializes in helping children and families navigate complex emotions. Meanwhile, as a parent, I believe in promoting the exploration of my children's interests other than studies. My daughter Emily has a remarkable talent for art and spends hours creating beautiful paintings that adorn our home. My son Nathan has always had a natural talent for soccer, and we spend our weekends attending his games and cheering him on. I am proud to see my children thriving in their lives. Regarding Robert, we have not been in contact, and I believe it is best to keep it that way. As many of you correctly assumed, his affair partner Isabella unexpectedly contacted me one day. The message was not an apology as one might expect, being that she was the other woman, but rather anger and resentment towards me for allegedly taking Robert away from her. She blamed me for their relationship falling apart and accused me of being the reason for his departure. In her messages, Isabella lashed out, calling me names and making hurtful accusations. She questioned my motives and claimed I had manipulated Robert into returning to our family. The messages were aggressive and unsettling, and I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the intensity of her anger. I couldn't believe that this woman had the audacity to be angry at me when she was the reason behind my family breaking up 8 years ago. I responded to her, stating that I had no desire to be with Robert and that I was in the process of getting a divorce. I reminded her of the pain and confusion that my family had gone through when Robert left us for her, and told her that she had no right to contact me. I stressed how our lives had been turned upside down all those years ago, and how my children had suffered as a result. I made it clear that I never wanted him back, and if she needed to blame someone, then she should blame herself and her gambling addiction. I blocked her after I sent her the message, and hopefully she won't try to contact me further. I don't want her to mess up the peaceful life my children and I have built. As for Robert's mother, I do talk to her sometimes, as she has always been kind to me. She has expressed her regrets about how things have turned out and wants me to do whatever it takes to be happy. Interestingly, his mother also revealed that due to my decision not to reconcile with Robert, the lake house would not be going to him as his father had intended. This revelation was unexpected, although it also felt deserving. This man's selfish decisions had not only shattered our family, but also another, so it was only fitting that he should suffer. It was time to move forward and leave the past behind. I know it is going to be a challenging journey, but the healing process is well underway. My children are growing and thriving, and our future looks brighter with each passing day. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo Relationships.